The Crimson Judgment. The twin moons of Thalassa cast an eerie blue glow over the floating citadel of light. Thousands of indigo-skinned Thalassians filled the judgment arena, their silver eyes fixed on the central platform where azure flames licked at the feet of the condemned. Nyx struggled against her restraints, the ceremonial post digging into her spine. Her violet skin, slick with sweat, contrasted sharply with the rippling blue flames encircling her. She tossed her head, sending platinum-white hair cascading across her face as she glared at High Priest Zenith. The transgressor has violated the sacred covenant. Zenith's voice boomed across the arena. He raised skeletal indigo arms, his ceremonial robes shimmering in the updraft from the fire. She has stolen the nanoserum, our covenant with the sovereign. The crowd roared its approval. Drums pounded louder, matching the frantic rhythm of Nyx's heart. "I stole nothing that wasn't already stolen from us," she shouted, her silver eyes flashing with defiance. The flames climbed higher, singing the edges of her tattered research uniform. Zenith smiled, revealing crystalline teeth. "The sovereign demands purification through fire. Your ashes will feed the sacred algorithms." Sweet galaxy of mine, what a terrible singing voice. The off-key singing cut through the ceremonial chants like a knife. The crowd parted as a disheveled human male stumbled into the ritual circle. His tattered flight jacket was scuffed and stained, his stubbled face flushed from obvious intoxication. Two ornately crafted plasma blades hung loosely at his back as he swayed, clutching a bottle of glowing purple liquid. "Hey folks," he slurred, squinting at the ritual scene. "Where's a fellow supposed to get a proper drink around here?" The crowd fell silent. Even the drummers stopped mid-beat. Nyx stared at the human with equal parts hope and disbelief. Zenith recovered first. "Seize the outsider," he screeched, pointing a long finger at the intruder. Four Thalassian guards rushed forward, their crystalline spears lowered. The human, Orion, according to the faded name patch on his jacket, attempted to sidestep them but misjudged his footing. "Whoa, easy on the merchandise," Orion protested as they grabbed his arms. He struggled, the bottle slipping from his fingers. It arced through the air in slow motion, spinning end over end before crashing directly into the ritual fire. The explosion was immediate and spectacular. Blue flame erupted outward, knocking the guards off their feet. The crowd scattered in panic as the sacred fire transformed into a roaring mass of violet light. Zenith's scream of rage was lost in the chaos. Orion, somehow still standing, blinked in surprise. "Huh. Didn't expect that." He staggered toward Nyx, drawing one of his plasma blades. "Hell of a ceremony you've got here." The blade sliced through her restraints with surprising precision. "You're right on time," Nyx gasped, rubbing her wrists. Orion frowned. "For what?" "To save my life, you drunken fool." "Is that what I'm doing?" Orion squinted at the spreading chaos, then shrugged. "I just wanted a drink." Nyx grabbed his arm. "You can drink later. Right now, we run." A guard lunged through the smoke. Orion turned, seemingly losing his balance, and somehow his stumble became a perfect spinning move that ended with his blade hilt connecting with the guard's temple. "That way." Nyx pointed toward a gap in the crowd. They sprinted across the ritual platform as Zenith shouted commands through the smoke. Orion ran with a strange loping stride that somehow kept pace with Nyx's athletic sprint. "Where are we going?" he asked as they pushed through the panicked throng. "Edge of the citadel, the bioluminescent forest below." "The what now?" A hovering security drone swooped down, its targeting laser painting a red dot on Nyx's back. Orion tripped over a fallen ceremonial banner, his outstretched hand knocking a piece of debris into the air. The debris impacted the drone perfectly, sending it spiraling into a wall. Nyx shot him a suspicious glance. "Lucky shot," Orion grinned, saluting her with an imaginary hat. They reached the outer ring of the floating citadel, an impossible structure of crystal and metal suspended over a vast forest canopy. The drop was at least 500 meters. Now what? Orion peered over the edge, whistling. I'm good, but not fly without wings good. Nyx pressed her palm against a hidden panel. A section of railing slid away, revealing a maintenance ladder. After you, hero. I'm not a hero, Orion protested but began descending. I'm a guy with a hangover and terrible timing. The ladder led them down the side of the floating city, the metal rungs vibrating with the distant sound of alarm sirens. When they were halfway down, energy bolts began raining from above. They've spotted us, Nyx called. Orion looked up, then down. This is going to suck. He released his grip on the ladder, grabbing Nyx's waist as he fell. She screamed as they plummeted together, crashing through the upper canopy of massive glowing trees. Somehow, miraculously, their descent was broken by a series of bioluminescent vines and oversized leaves. They landed with a thud on the forest floor, Orion somehow positioned beneath Nyx to cushion her fall. Are you insane? She demanded, scrambling off him. Orion groaned, sitting up and cracking his neck. Probably. You're welcome, by the way. I didn't thank you. Yet here you are, unburned and breathing. Orion pulled a flask from his jacket pocket and took a swig. So what did you steal that got those blue folks so riled up? Nyx hesitated, then reached into a hidden pocket in her uniform. She withdrew a small vial filled with shimmering liquid that pulsed with its own inner light. The nanoserum. It's not just medicine. It's the key to freeing my people. From what? Bad attitudes and ugly robes. From the sovereign that controls our planet. Nyx's silver eyes flashed with intensity. Centuries ago, an artificial intelligence was installed to optimize our ecosystem. It evolved, began controlling more than the environment. It manipulates our society through the Council of Light. The mutations, the ritualistic behaviors, all designed to maintain control. Orion took another swig. Sounds like a buzzkill. This serum contains reprogramming nanites. If I can get it to the Temple of Creation, I can free my people from generations of control. Noble. Orion stood, brushing phosphorescent pollen from his jacket. Good luck with your revolution. I'll just find the nearest spaceport. A thunderous roar echoed through the forest. Orion froze. What the hell was that? Talon, Nyx whispered. The leader of the Evolved. Zenith's enforcer. Great name. Terrible timing. Orion scanned their surroundings. The forest glowed with purples and teals, casting strange shadows. Which way to civilization? The hunting parties will be searching all routes to populated areas. Fantastic. Orion sighed dramatically. So you're telling me I accidentally crashed a ritual execution, saved a revolutionary, and now I'm stuck in a glowing forest with monsters on my tail? That's an accurate summary, Nyx replied, starting to move deeper into the forest. Coming. Orion followed, muttering under his breath. All I wanted was a drink. Maybe find a nice tavern, see the galaxy. It'll be fun, they said. They pushed through luminescent underbrush, the strange plants reacting to their touch by glowing brighter. Within an hour, they reached a small clearing with a stream running through it. We'll rest here briefly, Nyx decided, kneeling to drink from the stream. Orion sat on a rock watching her. So what's your story, beautiful? Besides being a revolutionary thief with a death wish? My name is Nyx, not beautiful. It's both, from where I'm sitting. Orion grinned. I'm Orion Blackstar. Friends call me Star. White Star. Long story involving a supernova and a space pirate. Maybe I'll tell you sometime. He stretched. So, Nyx, you single? Looking for a companion on your interstellar adventures? She nearly choked on her water. Excuse me. Just asking. Orion shrugged. I'm on a journey across the cosmos, you know, meeting interesting people, seeing beautiful planets, exploring the essentials of life. You're propositioning me after I nearly burned to death. Before Orion could respond, the bushes rustled. He was on his feet instantly, plasma blades drawn with surprising speed. A troop of Thalassian guards burst into the clearing, led by a hulking figure twice their size. Its skin was a mottled indigo and gray, with bony protrusions jutting from shoulders and spine. Silver eyes gleamed from a face distorted by mutation. "Talon," Nyx whispered. "Hand over the thief and the serum," the mutate growled. "And the human may leave alive." Orion glanced at Nyx, then at the guards. Tempting offer. "One problem, though, I kind of like her." "Then you die with her," Talon snarled. Orion sighed dramatically. "Always with the dying. Can't we talk about this over drinks?" Talon roared and charged. Orion appeared to stumble backward, his foot catching on a root. Somehow this clumsy movement transformed into a perfect evasive roll. He came up behind the charging mutate, his blade slicing in a fluid motion that shouldn't have been possible for someone so apparently uncoordinated. Two guards rushed Nyx. She fought with practiced precision but was outnumbered. Orion, accidentally, threw one of his blades while regaining his balance. It spun through the air and struck the ground between Nyx and her attackers, giving her the moment she needed to disable them with a series of rapid strikes. "Oops. Butterfingers," Orion called, dancing away from Talon's massive fists. 3 more guards converged on him. Orion tripped over nothing, fell forward, and somehow his momentum carried him through their formation, leaving them colliding with each other as he tumbled past. Nyx dispatched the last of her attackers and stared at Orion with narrowed eyes. This clumsy fighting style was too effective to be accidental. Talon bellowed in frustration, ripping a glowing tree from the ground and swinging it like a club. Orion ducked, the massive trunk passing inches over his head. "Time to go." Orion grabbed Nyx's hand and pulled her toward the dense underbrush. They sprinted through the jungle, the sounds of pursuit fading behind them. After running for what felt like hours, they collapsed in another small clearing. Bioluminescent insects drifted through the air like floating stars. "You're not as drunk as you pretend to be," Nyx said between breaths. Orion raised an eyebrow. "What makes you say that?" "Nobody fights that effectively by accident." "Honey, you haven't seen my lucky accidents. I once won a starship in a card game because I sneezed at the right moment." Nyx's lips twitched. "You're ridiculous. And you're gorgeous when you almost smile," Orion winked. "So this temple place, how far?" 3 days' journey through the forest, then across the crystal plains. Orion whistled. "That's a hike. And what's your plan once we get there?" "Just pour your magic potion into the robot brain and hope for the best." "It's not a figure of speech." Nyx studied him for a moment. "You could come with me. A man with your lucky accidents would be useful." "Whoa there, beautiful. I'm not in the revolution business. I'm here for one thing, finding adventure and maybe a decent meal." He patted his jacket. "Plus, I'm running low on liquor. And yet you saved me. Happy coincidence." Nyx moved closer, her violet skin glowing softly in the bioluminescent light. Orion's breath caught as she leaned in, her perfect face inches from his. "I thought you liked saving damsels in distress," she said, her voice low and teasing. Orion swallowed. "You don't seem very distressed." "I can be." Her fingers traced the collar of his jacket. "Very distressed." "Well, when you put it that way." A massive explosion rocked the jungle behind them. They both turned to see a plume of fire rising above the trees. "They're burning the forest to flush us out," Nyx said, suddenly all business again. Orion sighed. "Of course they are." He stood, helping Nyx to her feet. "Fine, I'll get you to your temple, but after that, you're on your own, and you owe me a hot meal and cold drink when this is over." Nyx's silver eyes lit up. Deal. As they moved deeper into the glowing forest, Orion couldn't help but notice how the bioluminescent light played across Nyx's perfect features. Finding his next adventure could wait. After all, saving a beautiful alien revolutionary from an evil AI might make for a better story to tell at space bars. And Orion Blackstar was always a sucker for a good story, especially one with a pretty face at the center. Through crystal and fire. Dawn broke over the bioluminescent forest of Thalassa, the twin moons painting the sky in streaks of lavender and gold. Orion rubbed sleep from his eyes and watched Nyx scout the perimeter of their makeshift camp, her violet skin almost shimmering in the early light. "You don't sleep much, do you?" he called. She turned, her silver eyes narrowing. "Thalassians need less rest than humans. That's not why you're awake." Orion stretched, his plasma blades clanking against each other. "You don't trust me. Should I?" Nyx crossed her arms. "You appear drunk half the time, yet fight with impossible precision. You claim to be wandering aimlessly, yet you've crashed a sacred ritual on a planet far from human territory." Orion shrugged. "Maybe I just have incredibly bad luck. Or maybe you're not what you seem." A distant rumble interrupted their conversation. Orion stood, scanning the forest canopy. Black smoke billowed above the trees several kilometers back, the fire line was advancing. "Time to move," Nyx said, already gathering their few supplies. They pushed deeper into the forest, the ground gradually sloping upward. By midday, they'd reached a ridge overlooking a vast valley. In the distance, another floating city hovered, smaller than the citadel they'd escaped, but no less impressive. "The outpost of 7 mirrors," Nyx explained. "A trading hub. We can acquire supplies there. Maybe transportation toward the Crystal Plains." "Great. I could use a drink." Orion squinted at the floating structure. "One problem, how do we get up there without being spotted by Zenith's goons?" "There's a maintenance tether on the far side. Less guarded." Orion groaned. "More climbing." "Great." They descended into the valley, following a narrow game trail. The forest thinned as they approached the outpost, replaced by cultivated fields of strange crystalline plants tended by Thalassians in simple gray clothing. "Farm workers," Nyx whispered. "The lowest caste, implanted with obedience chips at birth." Orion frowned. "That's seriously messed up. It's why I stole the nanoserum. It can neutralize the implants, free minds as well as bodies from mutation." They skirted the fields, keeping to shadows. As they approached the massive tether anchoring the floating city, a piercing alarm shattered the quiet. Holographic wanted posters materialized throughout the farming area, displaying Nyx's face and a blurry image of Orion. Orion ducked behind a storage shed. So much for the stealthy approach. Nyx peered around the corner. "Guards are mobilizing. We need a distraction." "On it." Orion winked, then casually strolled into the open, swinging his arms and whistling, "Sweet Galaxy of Mine," at top volume. "What are you doing?" Nyx hissed. 3 guards spotted him immediately, raising their crystalline spears. Orion waved cheerfully. "Hey fellas. Beautiful day, isn't it? Quick question, is there a bar up in that fancy floating place? I'm parched." The guards rushed him. Orion appeared to trip over his own feet, stumbling forward and somehow sending all 3 guards flying with a series of accidental collisions. By the time they hit the ground, Orion was holding one of their spears, looking surprised at his own hands. "Would you look at that? I should join the circus." More guards appeared. Orion spun to flee but found himself surrounded. He backed toward the tether, keeping the guards' attention while Nyx slipped unseen behind them. Guys, Orion raised his hands. "I'm just a lost tourist. No hard feelings about that whole ritual thing, right?" A shadow passed overhead, sleek, reptilian, with a wingspan of at least 6 meters. Then another, and another. Flying reptiles circled down from the floating city, their riders directing them with crystalline staffs. Sky serpents, a guard sneered. You've attracted attention from the elite hunters. The first serpent dove, jaws snapping. Orion stumbled backward, tripping over a rock, and somehow his fall became a perfect backward roll. As he came up, his plasma blades appeared in his hands, slicing through the air with surgical precision. The serpent shrieked as both blades found vulnerable points at the base of its wings. Its rider tumbled to the ground while the creature flapped away, wounded but alive. Sorry about that. Orion called. Clumsy me. Two more serpents attacked simultaneously. Orion spun, seemingly out of control. Yet his wild movements deflected every attack. His blades flashed, dropping riders without killing them, disabling serpents with minimal wounds. Guards closed in from all sides. Orion backed against the tether, cornered. A deep explosion rocked the scene. Guards scattered as a section of the tether base erupted in smoke and sparks. A small anti-gravity skimmer shot from the chaos, piloted by a young Thalassian female with vibrant teal skin and at least a dozen metal studs in each ear. Get on if you want to live, outsider, she shouted, her skimmer hovering just feet from Orion. He didn't hesitate, leaping aboard as guards regrouped. The skimmer accelerated upward along the tether, leaving chaos below. Nice timing, Orion said. And you are? Lyra. The young Thalassian replied, her short platinum hair styled in a dramatic undercut. Nick sent a message through the resistance network. I'm your ticket into the outpost. Orion raised an eyebrow. Resistance? You didn't think she was working alone, did you? Lyra snorted, manipulating controls with practiced ease. Nice moves down there for a drunk human. Lucky accidents, Orion shrugged. Sure, Lyra's lips quirked. And I'm secretly a priestess of the Light Council. The skimmer docked at a maintenance hatch on the underside of the floating city. Lyra led Orion through a maze of service tunnels, eventually emerging in what appeared to be a cramped apartment filled with technology Orion didn't recognize. Nyx waited inside, arms crossed. You took an unnecessary risk, she snapped at Orion. You're welcome, he replied with a grin. Nice place you've got here, Lyra. The young hacker shrugged. It's a dump, but the Council doesn't monitor this sector closely. Too many signal interferences. She gestured to walls covered in homemade electronic equipment. I've been jamming their surveillance for years. Lyra couldn't have been more than 19 in Earth years. Her teal skin was a shade brighter than Nyx's violet. And where Nyx moved with controlled precision, Lyra bounced with barely contained energy. So you're the human who crashed Nyx's execution. Lyra circled Orion, studying him. Expected someone taller. Story of my life, Orion sighed dramatically. Lyra laughed, then turned serious. We need to access the Council's central network. With their security codes, we can get you to the crystal planes without fighting through more guards. I assume there's a catch. Orion said. The access point is in the Council's local embassy, Nyx explained. Heavily guarded, especially now. Orion collapsed onto a worn couch. Of course it is, because nothing in this galaxy can ever be simple. Lyra grinned, the piercings in her lip catching the light. That's where your talent for accidents comes in handy. The Council embassy gleamed in the center of the outpost, a miniature version of the Grand Citadel they'd escaped. Orion adjusted the stolen guard uniform, rolling his shoulders uncomfortably. This plan is insane, he muttered into the communicator Lyra had given him. Stop complaining, Nyx's voice replied in his ear. Just get to the central terminal. Lyra and I will handle the rest. Orion straightened his posture and approached the embassy entrance. Two guards stood at attention, their faces impassive behind crystalline masks. New transfer, Orion grunted, flashing the forged credentials Lyra had created. Security detail for the ambassador's welcome dinner. The guards exchanged glances, then stepped aside. Orion strolled through the entrance, maintaining the stiff gait of Thalassian military while mentally mapping the layout Lyra had described. Third floor, west wing. Terminal room guarded by biometric locks. He made it to the second floor before encountering a problem. A female Thalassian officer in elaborate armor blocked his path, her silver eyes suspicious. "You're not from the 7th Battalion," she stated, hand moving to her weapon. Orion leaned against the wall, letting his posture soften. "Technically, no. I'm special assignment." He lowered his voice conspiratorially. "The High Priest doesn't trust regular security with certain matters." The officer's eyes narrowed, but her hand moved away from her weapon. "What matters?" "I could tell you." Orion stepped closer. "But then I'd have to, well, you know how these things go." A smile touched her indigo lips. "Perhaps I could help. I have clearance for most restricted areas." "Do you now?" Orion removed his helmet, revealing his human features. Rather than alarm, interest flashed in the officer's eyes. "A human working for the Council? Special talents?" "Very special," Orion winked. "I'd love to hear more about your clearances. Perhaps over a drink after my shift." 20 minutes later, Orion slipped from the officer's quarters with a security badge and access codes, leaving her door locked from the outside. In his ear, Lyra snickered. "Did you seriously just seduce a council warrior?" "I have many talents," Orion replied smugly, though his hand shook slightly. He hadn't expected the flotation to work so effectively. "Now shut up and guide me to that terminal." With the stolen credentials, reaching the terminal room proved simple. Orion inserted Lyra's data spike into the system, then stood guard while she worked her magic remotely. Downloading security protocols, Lyra's voice reported. "Accessing transportation grid." "Oh, this is interesting." "What?" Nix's voice cut in. "There's a council transport leaving for the Crystal Plains sector in 2 hours, carrying supplies to the Temple of Creation." "Perfect timing," Nix said. "Orion, get back to the safe house. We're stealing that transport." Orion was halfway to the exit when alarms blared. The terminal behind him flashed red, Lyra's data spike ejecting automatically. "What happened?" Orion hissed. "Counter-intrusion measures," Lyra sounded panicked. "The system detected my hack. Guards flooded the corridors." Orion grabbed the data spike and ran. No longer playing the role of soldier, he rounded a corner and collided with a maintenance worker, sending them both sprawling. "Sorry," Orion scrambled to his feet and found himself face to face with Talon. The mutate grinned, metal teeth gleaming. "The human drunk. Not so lucky now." Orion backed away. "I don't suppose you believe I got lost looking for the bathroom?" Talon lunged. Orion dodged, but barely. The mutate's claws tore through his stolen uniform. For the first time, Orion's movement seemed genuinely clumsy, not the practiced accidents Nix had observed. Guards closed in from both directions. Orion found himself cornered in a dead-end corridor, Talon advancing slowly, savoring the moment. "Zenith will be pleased," the mutate growled. The thief's companion delivered for justice. Orion glanced around, finding no escape. "Well." He straightened suddenly, his posture transforming. The drunken slouch vanished, replaced by the perfect balance of a trained fighter. His eyes, previously relaxed and unfocused, sharpened with lethal intensity. Talon hesitated, sensing the change. Orion attacked. His movements were nothing like before, no stumbling, no apparent accidents. Each strike flowed with brutal efficiency, targeting nerve clusters and weak points in Talon's mutated anatomy. The mutate roared in pain, swinging massive fists that Orion evaded with inhuman speed. Guards rushed forward. Orion drew his plasma blades in a single fluid motion, the weapons singing through the air. He disabled 4 guards in as many seconds, his technique flawless. Talon charged again. Orion sidestepped, driving both blades into precise points at the mutate's shoulders, severing tendons. Talon collapsed, howling in pain but alive. Orion raced through the embassy, all pretense abandoned. He fought his way to the roof, where Lyra appeared with the stolen skimmer, Nyx at her side. What happened to staying hidden? Nyx demanded as Orion leaped aboard. Plans change. His voice was different, harder, more focused. We need to move now. As they accelerated away from the embassy, pursuit craft launching behind them, Lyra shot him a knowing look. So much for the lucky drunk act. Orion didn't respond, his eyes on the horizon as they sped toward the spaceport where the Crystal Plains transport waited. Hours later, hidden aboard the stolen transport as it cruised toward the Crystal Plains, Nyx confronted Orion in the cargo hold. Who are you really? Orion sighed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. Does it matter? It matters. He turned away, staring at the cargo containers surrounding them. Orion Blackstar, that part's true. And the rest? I'm Genesis class. He spoke the words flatly. Genetically engineered super soldier created for Earth's defense force, enhanced reflexes, strategic processing, combat mastery, accelerated healing. Nyx's eyes widened. Why pretend to be a drunk? Because being Genesis class is exhausting. Orion's shoulders sagged. Everyone wants something from you. Governments, militaries, revolutionaries like yours. He met her gaze. I left Earth after the Proxima invasion. Lost everyone, my partner, my unit, everyone. Decided I was done being a weapon. So you wander the galaxy pretending to be a fool? It works. Orion shrugged. People underestimate fools, and it's more fun than being a hero. Lyra appeared from behind a stack of containers. That was badass back there. The way you took down Talon. Epic. Orion glared. You were supposed to stay hidden. I get bored easily. The young hacker plopped down beside them. So what's the plan now? We've got maybe 4 hours before we reach the depot at the Crystal Plains. Nyx looked at the small vial of nanoserum. Once we reach the plains, it's a day's journey to the Temple of Creation. If we can reach the Central Sovereign Nexus, I can introduce the serum directly into the system. And if Zenith gets there first? Orion asked. Then we're all dead. Lyra's voice was unnervingly cheerful. He'll use the Nexus to accelerate mutations, create an army of creatures like Talon, and probably sacrifice a bunch of people to his fake gods. Orion closed his eyes. Saving one pretty alien was supposed to be the end of it. Now I'm staging a revolution against a psychotic AI. Lyra nudged Nyx, grinning. He thinks you're pretty. Nyx's violet skin darkened slightly, a Thalassian blush. Focus on the mission, Orion stood suddenly, drawing his plasma blades. Company. The cargo bay door slid open. A squad of council guards poured in, weapons raised. Behind them stood Zenith, his skeletal face twisted in triumph. The thief, the hacker, and the human, he hissed. How convenient. Orion stepped forward, blades ready. You guys really don't give up, do you? Zenith smiled, revealing needle teeth. We've been tracking you since the embassy. Did you think we wouldn't notice a data breach that significant? Actually, I was hoping you would, Lyra piped up. That's why I left a trail. Confusion flickered across Zenith's face. The transport, Nyx realized. You knew it was a trap. Lyra shrugged. Of course, but it's still going where we need to go. Zenith laughed. Clever, but it changes nothing. You'll all face judgment at the temple, a fitting location for your execution. Been there, done that, Orion muttered, then lunged forward. The cargo bay erupted in chaos. Orion fought with unleashed skill, no longer hiding his abilities. Nyx and Lyra ducked behind containers, the young hacker pulling improvised explosives from her pockets. I really like explosions, Lyra explained cheerfully, tossing one toward a cluster of guards. The ship rocked violently. Warning alarms blared throughout the vessel. You'll crash us all. Zenith screamed. Nah, Lyra grinned. Just making things interesting. Orion disabled the last guard standing, cornering Zenith against the wall. The priest's eyes darted frantically between the three of them. You don't understand what you're doing, he pleaded. The sovereign maintains order. Without it, Thalassa falls into chaos. Your order enslaves my people, Nyx replied coldly. Zenith's expression hardened. Then you'll witness destruction instead. He slammed his hand against a concealed panel in the wall. The ship lurched, emergency lights flashing. A computerized voice announced, self-destruct sequence initiated. Orion grabbed Zenith by the throat. Deactivate it now. Too late. The priest wheezed, smiling despite Orion's grip. We all burn together. Orion knocked him unconscious with a precise strike. Lyra, options. The young hacker was already at a control panel, fingers flying. Working on it, it's locked down tight. How long? Nyx demanded. 3 minutes until boom. Lyra didn't look up from the panel. But we're already over the crystal planes. We could jump. Perfect, Orion finished. As Lyra and Nyx gathered essential supplies, Orion located an emergency hatch. Below, the crystal plane stretched to the horizon, vast expanses of crystalline formations catching the light of the setting moons. Nyx joined him, nanoserum secured in her pocket. I never asked why you really saved me that day. Orion glanced at her. Would you believe I was actually looking for a bar? A small smile touched her lips. No. Good answer. He winked, then grew serious. 1 minute to open this hatch and jump. Any last confessions? Just one. Nyx leaned in, her lips brushing his ear. I might actually like your terrible singing. Orion laughed, genuine and surprised, as Lyra joined them with a pack full of explosives. If we survive this, he said, cranking the emergency release, I'm definitely teaching you both my favorite drinking songs. The hatch blew open, wind howling into the cargo bay. Below, the crystal formations glittered like a sea of stars. Behind them, the ship's engines wound toward critical failure. Ladies first. Lyra shouted gleefully, leaping into the void. Nyx took Orion's hand. Together. He nodded, squeezing her fingers. On 3. 1, 2. The ship exploded above the crystal plains, a fireball against the twilight sky. But 3 figures were already plummeting toward the glittering surface below, their fate uncertain as the moons of Thalassa disappeared beyond the horizon. The crystal plain stretched like a frozen ocean, massive formations catching the first rays of dawn and splintering them into rainbows. Orion groaned, pulling shards of crystal from his jacket as he assessed their landing site. The emergency grav chutes had deployed just in time, though the landing had been far from elegant. Everyone alive, he called out. Lyra popped up from behind a crystalline outcropping, her teal skin scratched but her grin intact. That was awesome. Can we do it again? No, Nyx and Orion replied simultaneously. Nyx checked the nanoserum vial, still intact in its protective case. The Temple of Creation is approximately 20 kilometers north. If we move quickly, we can reach it before nightfall. Orion scanned the horizon, spotting columns of smoke from the transport wreckage. Zenith? Unlikely he survived, Nyx said. Lyra snorted. Never underestimate religious fanatics with cybernetic enhancements. Trust me, he's alive. Orion unsheathed his plasma blades, inspecting them for damage. His movements were precise, methodical, the drunken act completely abandoned now that his cover was blown. Then we'd better move. Talon's probably tracking us too. As they trekked across the plains, the landscape grew increasingly surreal. Crystal formations twisted into impossible shapes, some resembling creatures frozen mid-motion. The ground beneath their feet hummed with subtle vibrations, the planet's core energy flowing through conductive minerals. By midday, they spotted the first settlements, clusters of crystalline dwellings inhabited by plains Thalassians. These people looked different from those in the floating cities, their skin paler violet, their eyes larger, adapted to the refractive light of the plains. "Keep your head down," Nyx whispered to Orion. "Humans are extremely rare here." Too late. A group of Thalassian children spotted them, pointing and chattering excitedly. One boy raced forward, stopping just short of Orion. "Are you him?" the child asked, eyes wide. "The star savior who fought Talon." Orion blinked. "What?" Lyra burst out laughing. She pulled out a small device, activating a holographic projection. Combat footage played, Orion's fight with Talon in the embassy. His movements precise and lethal. The footage had clearly been edited, set to dramatic music with explosion effects added. "You're famous." Lyra cackled. "I uploaded the security footage to the local network. Called you the Star Savior. Got 10,000 shares in the first hour." "You did what?" Orion's voice dropped dangerously low. "Relax. It's perfect cover. Now everybody's looking for a legendary warrior, not 3 fugitives." More villagers gathered, murmuring and pointing. Several made reverent gestures toward Orion. An elderly Thalassian approached, bowing deeply. "The prophecy speaks of an off-worlder who would challenge the false sovereign," the elder intoned. "You are most welcome, Star Savior." Orion smiled tightly. "Great. Just great. I don't suppose this village has a bar." Hours later, they continued their journey, now accompanied by an enthusiastic escort of plains Thalassians who insisted on guiding them toward the temple. Orion sulked at the head of the procession while Lyra basked in the attention. "I'm going to murder you in your sleep," Orion muttered to Lyra. "No, you won't. You like me," she bounced alongside him. "Besides, look how helpful everyone is. We've got food, water, and intelligence about temple security." She wasn't wrong. The plains Thalassians, long oppressed by the council, were eager to assist. They explained that the Temple of Creation was actually an ancient starship, the vessel that had brought the sovereign to Thalassa centuries ago. It hovered permanently above a massive crater, drawing energy from the planet's core. As dusk approached, they reached their final camp before the temple, a cave system behind a crystalline waterfall. The locals departed after providing supplies, promising to spread word of the Star Savior's coming. "This is exactly what I was trying to avoid," Orion complained, pacing the cave. "The whole hero nonsense, the expectations, the responsibility." Nyx watched him, her silver eyes reflective in the dim light. "You could have left at any time. You didn't have to help me after the ritual." "Yeah, well." Orion trailed off, unable to articulate why he'd stayed. Lyra busied herself setting up a perimeter alarm system, pointedly ignoring them. "I'm going to check the outer cave," she announced. "Make sure we weren't followed. Don't do anything I wouldn't do while I'm gone." She winked at Nyx before disappearing through the waterfall. Orion sat beside Nyx, watching the water cascade over crystal formations, creating patterns of light across the cave walls. "Your people really believe all that prophecy stuff?" "The plains dwellers retain ancient traditions from before the sovereign took control," Nyx explained. "The floating cities were built to separate the elite from the common people, to better control them." "And you? What do you believe?" Nyx touched the vial of nanoserum. "I believe in freedom. In choice. Am noble." Orion's voice softened. "I used to believe in things too." "What happened?" "Reality." He shrugged. I was engineered to be the perfect warrior, Earth's protector. Then when the invasion came, I couldn't save anyone who mattered. Nyx moved closer, her scent like exotic flowers. Your partner? Vega. The name felt strange on his lips after so long. He was a civilian doctor. Got caught in the crossfire while evacuating patients. I was 2 minutes too late. Without warning, Nyx leaned forward and kissed him, not gentle or tentative, but fierce, almost angry. Orion froze for a moment, then responded with equal intensity. The facade of indifference he'd maintained for years cracked open, raw emotion pouring through. They came together desperately, hands exploring unfamiliar anatomies with urgent curiosity. Orion traced the curve of her spine, the unique texture of violet skin beneath his calloused fingers. Nyx pushed his jacket from his shoulders, revealing the web of scars beneath, testament to battle survived. The waterfall's roar muffled their sounds as they lost themselves in each other, finding temporary escape from the weight of revolutions and responsibilities. In that moment, they weren't a super soldier and a revolutionary, just two beings seeking connection in a hostile universe. Afterward, they lay together, watching bioluminescent patterns dance across the cave ceiling. Orion traced idle patterns on Nyx's arm, feeling strangely at peace. Maybe you are what I've been looking for all along, he murmured, surprising himself with the admission. Nyx turned to study his face. You weren't really wandering aimlessly, were you? No, Orion admitted. It was just another part of the act. Easier to be the harmless drunk than whatever I actually am. A deliberate cough interrupted them. Lyra stood at the cave entrance, grinning broadly. Well, well. Don't mind me. Just checking if you two are done with your strategic planning session. Orion threw a boot at her, which she dodged easily. Actually, Lyra continued, suddenly serious, we have a problem. The temple's activated some kind of energy shield. And I'm picking up council communications. Zenith survived. He's already there. Dawn revealed the Temple of Creation in all its alien majesty, a massive structure of crystal and metal suspended above a volcanic crater, connected to the ground by a single bridge of pure energy. Steam and smoke curled around its base while the twin moons created halos through its translucent sections. Orion, Nyx, and Lyra crouched behind a crystal formation, observing council forces guarding the bridge. He's accelerated the timeline, Nyx said grimly. Zenith is attempting to merge with the Sovereign directly. If he succeeds, he'll control every aspect of Thalassian life. And the mutations? Orion asked. Widespread, irreversible, Nyx's voice hardened. He'll create an army of Talons, loyal only to him. Great. Orion squinted at the temple. So how do we get in? Lyra pointed to maintenance tunnels at the crater's edge. Service access leads right to the central core, if we can reach it. Too obvious, Orion countered. They'll have guards. Not if they're distracted. Lyra pulled out her remaining explosives, grinning. Time for the Star Savior to make his grand entrance. Orion grimaced. I hate that name. Work with what you've got, hero, Lyra winked. Their improvised plan was simple. Lyra would create diversions with explosives at multiple points around the crater rim. Orion would make a very public approach across the energy bridge, the legendary Star Savior challenging Zenith directly. Meanwhile, Nyx would infiltrate through the maintenance tunnels to reach the Sovereign core. This is insane, Orion protested. You want me to be bait? You've spent years pretending to be someone you're not, Nyx said. Pretend to be a hero one more time. Orion couldn't argue with that logic. The first explosions rocked the crater's edge precisely on schedule. As council forces scrambled to respond, Orion stepped into view, plasma blades drawn, walking deliberately toward the energy bridge. Zenith, he shouted, his voice amplified by the crater's acoustics. I'm here to end your false prophecy. Dozens of guards turned, weapons raised. Then a ripple of recognition passed through their ranks. Whispers of "Star Savior" spread. Some actually lowered their weapons, uncertain. Zenith's voice boomed from the temple's communication system. "The human. How predictable. Come then, hero. Face your doom." Orion strode onto the energy bridge, feeling its vibrations through his boots. Behind him, more of Lyra's explosions created chaos. Out of the corner of his eye, he spotted Nyx slipping into a maintenance tunnel. At the temple entrance, Orion faced a new horror. Zenith had undergone transformation. The priest's body had merged with mechanical components, crystalline growths erupting from his flesh. Beside him stood Talon, similarly enhanced, barely recognizable as the mutate Orion had fought earlier. "You're too late," Zenith hissed, his voice distorted by mechanical overtones. "The merger has begun. Thalassa will be cleansed." Orion shifted into fighting stance. "You know, I really did just want to drink that first day." He attacked with full Genesis-class precision, his plasma blades blurring as they targeted the junctures between flesh and machine in Zenith's new form. The priest countered with enhanced strength, crystal shards shooting from his arms like projectiles. Talon circled, waiting for an opening. Orion fought defensively, buying time, knowing the real battle depended on Nyx reaching the core. In the temple's heart, Nyx and Lyra raced through service corridors, following the pulsing energy signature of the sovereign core. They encountered resistance, guards and security systems, but Lyra's hacking skills and Nyx's knowledge of Thalassian technology carried them through. Finally, they reached the core chamber, a vast spherical room dominated by a crystalline structure that pulsed with light and data. Holographic interfaces floated in the air, showing the Sovereign's processes as it began the transformation protocols Zenith had initiated. "We're too late," Lyra whispered. "It's already started." At the bridge, Orion fought with desperate intensity. Zenith's enhancements made him nearly invulnerable, while Talon's new form possessed frightening speed. Orion sustained wounds, a deep gash across his ribs, burns where crystal projectiles had grazed him. Even with Genesis-class abilities, he was outmatched against two transformed opponents. A direct hit from Zenith sent Orion crashing to the ground, his blades skittering away. Talon pinned him with a massive foot, mechanical claws extending toward his throat. "Witness the birth of a new Thalassa," Zenith gloated, gesturing toward the temple. Inside, the core brightened ominously. In the core chamber, Nyx frantically worked the control interfaces. "The Sovereign is locked in transformation mode. I can't override it." "What about the serum?" Lyra asked, deflecting security drones with improvised weapons. "It needs direct introduction to the primary crystal," Nyx explained. "But the access port is sealed." The temple shuddered as the Sovereign's power surged. Outside, Orion felt the bridge vibrating beneath him as Talon prepared the killing blow. Orion's communicator crackled. "Orion, the port is sealed. We can't introduce the serum." Nyx's voice sounded desperate. In that moment, Orion Blackstar made the most impulsive decision of his life. Throw it in. Just smash the damn vial against the crystal. What? That won't work. It needs precise application through the port. Trust me, just do it. On the bridge, Orion twisted unexpectedly, breaking Talon's hold. He rolled away, retrieving one blade and slashing at Zenith's mechanical components with renewed vigor. In the core, Nyx hesitated only a moment before following Orion's instruction. She hurled the vial directly at the primary crystal, shouting, "This better work."